We have a lot to discuss here because it wasn't a great day at the office for Arsenal, I don't think. My initial feeling on the game was that it was going to be a tough game, not necessarily because Tottenham were going to be amazing, but more from the standpoint of like, this is our third game in a week, and we haven't actually had a situation in a long time where we play our first 11 in in Europe as well as the Premier League. So I knew there were going to be some tired legs, and as the game wore on, we were probably going to get more tired and they were going to look more fresh because they have not played in Europe. They have been resting all week. And so, being at home was an advantage. Um, you know, I think there were a lot of things that were going in our way at the beginning of the game that we should have utilized. I think the first 35 minutes of the game, Arteta coached a 3-0. We'll get to the starting 11 because I know people take issue with the starting 11, but let me just land here. Mikel Arteta coached a 3-0 in the first 35 minutes of the game. The first 10 minutes were kind of even, with both teams kind of feel each other out, but we started to impose ourselves. We were cutting through them quite easily. And in those first 35 minutes of the games, you can see that our goal was to stop them from playing out from the back and nick them when they're trying to, play out. And we were doing that. The only thing is that we weren't capitalizing on those situations. One position in particular that I remember is Udogie passing the ball backward blindly, and Nketiah anticipating it. He was in a very good position to slot it over to Jesus, who was open on the back stick, and he decides to shoot at a very you're not making that. Like, you're not that type of striker where you're going to be able to make the most impossible shot become a goal from that angle. Like, you just don't have that. So the decision making right then and there was poor. That right there could have been 1-0. Then we scored first goal. That was great. We took advantage. We cut through them again very easily. There was nothing that Spurs were doing defensively that was keeping us out. The only way that they were going to keep us out is, one, if we made bad decisions in the final third, and two, if we gave them the ball, period. Like, we were cutting through them. It wasn't that difficult. They're not a great defensive team. Gabriel Jesus anticipates Maddison receiving the ball from his goalkeeper, and at a bad angle, Jesus wins it. And instead of slamming it in the back of the net, he panics and kicks it over. That right there is 2-0 and the game is over. Game is over from there. If you concede the Romero goal, that was calamitous, and then Maddison gets pickpocketed there in the first 35 minutes of the game, it's done. So that right there is a 3-0 game with Spurs doing relatively nothing. Now, Raya made a really good save, which is fine. I'll give him that. But for the most part, I did a watch along and I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, they're the way better team." They didn't do anything special in that game, you guys. They didn't do anything special. They played better football than they had played before. But really, it was just a simple game of Arsenal shit the bed. Period. Point blank. We were not even at our best, and we're 2-1 up in the second half. 10 seconds later, Jorginho just absolutely loses his mind, starts diddling around with the ball at the halfway line, gets pickpocketed, and they score. And that is our main issue, is that, one, we don't concentrate, and two, we just, when they take advantage of the situations that we make a mistake, and when they make a mistake, we don't punish. We don't punish. We punish Maddison for that mistake that he makes. We punish Udogie for that mistake that he makes. The game is 3-0. We get to take players off. We get to rest, and we're celebrating right now instead of having this conversation about how poorly we played in that second half. Spurs did nothing special whatsoever. I didn't see anything from them that was like they're outplaying us. In the second half, when we started to get more tired and they were fresh, yeah, they were kind of like jumping on second balls and we were struggling a little bit more. But they still didn't do anything special, you guys. Nothing. It's the meme where Arsenal are standing there with our fucking backpack on, and Arsenal comes up behind Arsenal and hits Arsenal over the head with a little pole or a stick. We beat ourselves today. And it disappoints me to know that we wouldn't have even had to been that good to have beaten them, but they still walked away with a point. Now, I think the goal that they score is a good goal. I know some people are like, oh, Saka should have done this. He should have done that. He got cooked by Madison. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes the other player is just good, whatever. But the second goal, I just can't accept it. I'm still shaking from it because as bad as we were playing, we could have still walked away with the 3 points. And that just infuriates me with everything. They didn't even have to do much. They weren't outplaying us. Like, it just wasn't even like, I was watching the game, you guys. Like, you guys know, like, I tend to be very dramatic. They did not outplay us. We outplayed ourselves. Like, it's just so frustrating every single time we do it. And so, I understand also the conversation around the starting 11. I was very disappointed to see Eddie Nketiah starting in this game, but I had a feeling in my heart, deep down, that he would start because he didn't play midweek at all, and Trossard was out. And if Trossard is out, he's going to revert back to Nketiah, who I thought had a really poor game today. And I don't I'll talk about some other players too that I don't think had a great game. But even when he's having a there's some players in our team that even if they have poor games, they contribute to the team. Like Odegaard, like Saka, they can have poor individual games and still contribute. Jesus, he's one of those as well. Eddie Nketiah is somebody that he does not contribute anything if he's not having a great game, because he wasn't even from a pressing standpoint, he wasn't able to take advantage of any of those situations where the team was pressing as a group and we would nick the ball. He was just not on it at all. He couldn't hold the ball up. He couldn't pass. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't beat a man. It was very frustrating to see him play 90 plus minutes today. He is a blind spot for Mikel Arteta. And there are certain players in your team that if you continue to play them, they will end up sacking you, period. And Eddie could just be that player because he's not good enough. And I'm tired of beating around the bush on it because people are sensitive. He's not. He's not. And I know that we didn't have that many other choices, but that was not it. That was not it. I would even venture to say that we probably should have played Jesus central and Nelson out wide, or ESR out wide, anybody else out wide, because he just gives you very little. If he's playing well, he'll give you a goal. If he's playing poor, there's just nothing there. And I'm so frustrated by that. But that being said, even with the starting 11, including Eddie, who played poorly today, Arsenal absolutely kicked themselves in the face. And they walk away with a point thinking that they played well. And we walk away with a point knowing that we probably should have won that game. First 35 minutes. So frustrating. I think a point is all we deserve. I'm glad that we didn't lose. But damn, that was not good, Arsenal. That was not good. This just, I could deal with us looking sluggish and stuff after playing midweek. I could deal with that. I could deal with us not being at our top level. But that does not mean you give the ball away at the halfway line the way that you did, Jorginho. That is just insanity. Insanity. I can't get over it. I won't. I can't. Rice, I don't think was having his best game, but he was taken off because of an injury that he's been trying to deal with since he's been at Arsenal. And I'm not quite sure why Vieira came off, but it might just have been tactical or maybe an injury as well. But I just didn't see enough from anybody. I'm frustrated because, the narrative will be that Tottenham were great, but they fucking weren't. And we just let them get a point. It's frustrating. I want us to make teams work for it, and we never do. It's frustrating. It just is. There's 200 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. A fan says ESR and Nelson should have been subbed on earlier. Schwarz King says, but no one will talk about that. I'm not sure what you're saying. We should have had a second penalty. Let me know when that was. Leo says, Gabriel Jesus should have scored 3. Earth Extremity says Jesus should have scored. that one probably frustrates me the most because that ends up being the chance that completely deads the game. The Nketiah one, yeah, that's bad decision making, but Jesus, I expect a player of his quality to, you're in the box, just put it in the back of the net. It absolutely demoralizes them to concede 2 goals of that calamitous magnitude. Like, it just does. And to not put that away, I just felt like even when we scored, people will say, like, in the watch along, they'll vouch for me. We scored that penalty and I did not even celebrate because I got the same feeling in my gut that I got when we scored, when we went 2-0 up against Fulham, that I just had a feeling we would concede because there was nothing in that game that made me feel like we had complete control of it. And we conceded 10 seconds later. The Sheikh says Arteta was outclassed by an experienced coach. Um, if he was outclassed, then, Tottenham would have won. But again, like, saying he was outclassed and making it all about Mikel Arteta, I will say that I think Mikel Arteta made a mistake with Nketiah. But I think people are just, I don't like Arteta, or I don't think Arteta is good enough. So this is confirmation bias of him not being outclassed by another coach. It's like they were passing the ball to us while they were trying to play out of the back. Mikel coached us to press the shit out of them and win the ball. And we did it twice, and we didn't put the ball in the back of the net. So how is he out coached by a more experienced manager? That's clearly Gabriel Jesus not making the right decision, not putting his foot through the ball, and Eddie not making the right decision in the final third. So, one, the only way that you're outclassed by a more experienced manager is if they take away the 3 points. They didn't. But again, like, what did Ange do to make Jorginho at the halfway line just give them the ball? I'm sorry. First 35 minutes, Mikel Arteta coached a 3-0. I can be upset about Eddie, but Eddie being up there was not stopping us from just like doing normal things, period. Like, we should have had at least 3 goals in that first half. And we should not be giving the ball away at the halfway line after we scored the penalty. I'm so sorry, but as frustrated as I am with Mikel Arteta for not, you know, maybe trying something else up front, and didn't have to do anything to outclass Mikel Arteta because the players just shit the bed on the pitch. Like, that's not coaching. That's Arteta. Like, that's Arsenal kicking themselves in the face. I'm sorry. Like, Nor says Jorginho at his big age shouldn't be having these errors. But no, Big Ange, he totally outclassed Arteta by what? What did he do? Like, there's nothing that is not outclassing anybody. Like, that's Arteta. Like, that is Arsenal kicking themselves. I'm so sorry. Like, I can blame maybe like 25% of the game on Mikel, but 75% of that was the players just shitting the damn bed. Period. Point blank. Sorry. Like, I can't. John says Spurs played the better football by some distance. I don't agree with that, but fair enough. But again, that will be the narrative because it is what it is. But better football didn't give them the 3 points. So, there it goes. And every time we got the ball and we got into the final third, we cut through them pretty quickly. Like, I would be like, if I felt like they actually played the better football, I would say it. But I don't actually think that they did. I think the second half was both teams kind of fouling each other, injuries, mistakes. And they played the better football. But again, Udogie kicks it back like blindly to Nketiah. Madison almost gets pickpocketed right there in his box. I don't think they played the better football. But that's my take. I think people will say that because they don't like Arsenal. Like, that's just what it is. Mark says this has nothing to do with Arteta. Mistakes happen, and the manager does not go over the white line. This was the players, once again, mentality and focus. Elliot Roberts says it takes only 5 players to see our deficiencies. Well, 5 players is a lot, but I'm just not convinced, you guys. I think, one, we had a game midweek. We were tired. If you actually watch the first half with your true eyes and are not lying because of, results-based analysis, we were outplaying them in the first half. We were the much better side. Maybe they take the second half and that's what you're focusing on. But that second half was not even good by either team. I didn't see anybody really controlling the game or bopping it around anybody. It was a lot of fouls. It was a lot of chippiness. It was just a lot of nothing. So I don't know. That's just what I saw. But in terms of like injuries and stuff like that, like I just don't think our team had enough composure. I think, again, if Jorginho doesn't give away at the halfway line, are we having these same conversations? Not really, So the injuries are one thing, but the first 35 minutes I thought we looked really good. And that was without Trossard, without Martinelli, without Rice having his best game, And then we had Kai come on and Jorginho come on. And I think just all in all, the team just kind of like the level just dropped. I really did see like quite a bit of fatigue. And it does take a lot out of you to get up 2-0 or 2-1 after fighting hard to get to that position and then have somebody make a huge individual error that just completely just deflates the team. So, but yeah,